What's up, everybody? What's going on? How's everybody doing today? Um, how's it to what? Today's Tuesday, and anyway, just gonna get started in about 10, 15 seconds. What's going on, people? How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing good. Happy Tuesday. Cool. So I'm gonna get started. So today, hi and welcome to this is my 13th episode of the Cimifly Live the Entrepreneur's Journey. I am your host, Cecil Williams. And today we're gonna be talking about a concept or an ideology called build it and they will come. But before I get to that, I want to kind of put some plugs up in real quick. So today's episode is brought to you by Royal Dynamite, self-expression through fashion to facilitate change. Royal Dynamite believes that culture can drive change in communities around the world through fashion, collaboration, and creativity. Royal Dynamite uses our collective love of fashion to inform, educate, and inspire communities around the world. So go check it out. The hat I'm wearing, the t-shirt I'm wearing is brought to you by Royal Dynamite. Check it out, royaldynamite.com. Anyway, so like I said, welcome everybody who's on. Thank you for coming. Today's episode is going to be talking or exploring the ideology and the concept behind build it and they will come. So as I mentioned yesterday in my little like streaming video, the original quote comes from a movie, and I mentioned who could tell me the name of the movie, and one of my friends texted me the name of the movie, and the movie by Kevin Costner is called Field of Dreams. If you a little bit younger, you remember that movie about the cornfield, baseball, and all that stuff, and what he said in the movie was, if you build it, he will come. And apparently, he was talking about these dead baseball players who came to the field to play baseball and all that good stuff. So that's where the original phrase comes from. And then obviously, it got taken into a business context where it says, build it and they would come. So we're going to examine that statement and see if it's true. And if it is true, who's it true for? Because I think that phrase gets used a lot of times. And for a period of time, maybe if you even take the .com era, it was probably maybe a true statement that businesses were building and they could build anything and customers will just flock in. And there's still certain brands in the world that I think it applies to, not entirely 100%, but it still does apply to their branding and their business model. So normally I like to start with a few quotes. And this one is particularly relevant because I own an e-commerce brand, Royal Dynamite, and this statement kind of is true, and it's something that people can take from an understanding standpoint of this is how it works, not just in e-commerce, but this is also how it works in sales. So it says typical conversion rates are between 0.5 and 4%, depending on your price range and customer base. What that means is that for every 1,000 visits on your website from visitors, between 960 and 995 will show up and leave without doing a thing. This comes from Bob Whaling in a book called Start Small, Stay Small. So essentially, think about this. Doesn't matter. The biggest brands in the world have a conversion rate of between, or most brands, between 0.5 to 4%. So 1,000 people visit your website in a specific span. Now it's different for different brands. It could be for a day, it could be for a second, it could be for a minute. Basically, 96% of them will leave. It's the same ideology wherein if you're a salesperson and you're selling, so I don't know, when I was in college, if you wanted to go to the sales route, most college kids probably went and found that job and realized it wasn't for them. It was selling knives, where you go, you sit through this presentation and they tell you you can sell knives and all these things, and you have to go door to door. So if you were to knock on 100 doors a day, you're probably going to have 96 of them tell you no, they don't want to buy a knife. Of the 4 that probably entertain you, it's maybe because they felt bad, or maybe because you were just that good and maybe 2 people will buy. So it's the same thing with conversion rates for websites. Of the 1,000 people that visit your website within a given time period, only 4 of them will probably make a purchase. So therefore, is that ideology that build it that they will come work? It might work. Well, in this instance, it worked for four people, not the other 996. But essentially, you have to make sure you build a good brand, and you have to make sure you have staying power, and you have to make sure you find reasons to stay in front of your audience at all times for them to come to you, essentially. That, and that's kind of what the quote says. I mean, it's a game of numbers. Next is basically, it says, but do I have to build a bridge? Maybe. But everything is first created in the mind and then in the world. The bridge is there. See it, cross it. Richie Norton. And this is kind of one of those abstract types of sayings, or whatever you want to call it. But essentially, what it's saying is, in every business, there's the ideation process. The entrepreneur thinks of something, they have a vision, and it is their responsibility to build it. When you build it, it goes like, you build it, they will come. There are certain businesses, I always say the easiest business that comes to mind, or the first brand that comes to mind when I think of build it and they will come, is Apple. When Apple launched the iPod, I mean, when Apple launched the iPhone, I mean, they're till today, I mean, even, but back then, think about it, there were tons and tons, millions of people all over the world, in the United States, in China, in Europe, standing out in long lines. I mean, sometimes even days before these products were launched, for them to be in line to be the first to get the iPhone or the iPod or whatever it is. And essentially, Steve Jobs ideated, came up with an idea with his team, or the Apple team came up with an idea, and they brought it to reality. They built the bridge. I mean, building the bridge is creating retail store, creating online access, and all these things. And people saw it and they crossed the bridge. I mean, that's them coming. And essentially, it works for certain brands. Nike's probably is another brand. I mean, currently Nike has this sneaker app where they sell not always exclusive shoes, but they put certain shoes on there. So today, I believe some lime green Nike what do you call, off whites came out, and Nike was selling those for $160. And basically, in order for you to even get them, you have to go into this draw. And first, you enter the draw. Nike then tells you get selected. And if you get selected to be part of the line or the draw, then you have to go into a second pool, where then you have to wait to find out if you got the shoe. So at 10 o'clock Eastern time, when these shoes normally get released, I mean, think about it. It's 7 on the East Coast, wherever in the United States you are. Everybody who's a sneakerhead is getting online trying to get these shoes. And if you don't get them, too bad. If you get them, they're currently being sold on what's the name of the StockX for 1,600. I mean, think about that. You buy them for $160, and you could sell them. You could turn around and sell them, if you get them 5 minutes later, for $1,600. And there are people out there who will buy it, build it, and they will come. But these, in my opinion, are the exceptions to the rule, or these are brands. I mean, think about how long Nike has been in existence. Think about how long Apple has been building. Not only have they needed time to build the brands they've built, but they've had to do it with a lot of hard work, a lot of staying power. A lot of things have been put in the back end for them to build powerful brands. I mean, Apple is one of the biggest companies from a cap standpoint, meaning how much it's worth, 2.5 trillion or something to that extent in the world. It's the most valuable company in the world. So it didn't just happen overnight for them to just be a brand where it's built it and they'll come. But these ideologies, I'm saying this not to say you cannot do it, but there's things that they've had to do to make sure they build it and they will come. And like I said, it doesn't apply for every brand, but we can take some of the things from these brands, and we're going to explore some of those things as to what we could do to make sure we build our brands to have staying power, to have good brand value, so people can come to us versus us struggling and trying to figure out how to find customers. And the last point is, it says, and it goes, this is along the lines with the build it and they will come. Build it and they will come only works in the movies. Social media is a build it, nurture it, engage it, and they may come and stay. Arthur Seth Godin, one of the most greatest marketing minds in our world today. So essentially what Seth is saying is, and goes back to what I'm saying, you have to build a bridge. You can't just think of an idea, you have a vision, and you think, okay, I'm going to make these t-shirts, I'm going to make these hats, and people are just going to come because I am Cecil or because I've given it a nice name. You have to spend time building that bridge. Building that bridge is nurturing it, engaging them, and hoping that when they come, they will stay. In order for them to stay, in this case, e-commerce, in order for me to get people to stay, I have to build a funnel. And it's funny, I was just reading something about on the internet that a funnel is not a something about, it's not a software, it's a thing. It's the marketing of your brand. And essentially what it's saying is, I'm not even sure if this thing is working, but sorry, I don't know if my live is kind of frozen, but whatever. And essentially what it's saying is, you have to give your audience a reason to purchase. And there's these statistics out there. I mean, they vary depending on industry, where it says sometimes it could take maybe 21 times for someone to have an interaction with your brand before they make a purchase. And those 21 times could take 6 months. So it just depends. Now, there's tactics you could use to build that brand. And sometimes, and I think one of the most important is an emotional connection, making people feel connected to you some way, somehow, or the idea of FOMO, fear of missing out. Human beings do not want to miss out on things. And I think Apple finds a way to make an emotional connections when they release their release day. Like they had one recently where they're releasing all the features of the iPhone. And so you're watching this video and you're thinking like, oh my God, they make an emotional connection with you. And then they tell you, okay, this phone's going to be out, and you start seeing the statistics. Apple's selling out of this phone. This is the fastest selling phone. This is that. And then FOMO kicks in for most people. They have a fear of missing out, and they don't want to miss out, and they want to be a part of the process. So, sorry, I think I got a question or something. Okay, it's working. Somebody say it's working. So yeah. So ultimately, it works that way for most brands. So we, as smaller brands or entrepreneurs, aspire to want to be like these bigger brands. So you have a funnel, people come into your funnel, they learn of your brand for the first time, whether it's through product seeding, whether it's through an ad you put on Instagram, whether it's through your social media. Just that one time, it doesn't matter what your messaging is. They're not just going to be like, oh, I mean, like I said, maybe if you're Apple, it'll happen. But Apple had time and the resources to be able to do that. And it took them a period of time to be able to get there. But if you're new, you first have to let them into your world. Then you have to give them your messaging. You have to tell them who you are, what you do, and you make a connection to them. You're not going to make a connection with every single person. Making a connection to certain people is finding your audience. What's up, V? It's finding your target audience. When you find your target audience, when you find your tribe, as some people will call it, then it becomes your responsibility to nurture them. So in our case, we have to keep sending them messages, email marketing. In today's world, SMS, you have to create content. I mean, if you go on royaldynamite.com, check out the blog, we have tons and tons of content revolving around the brand. I mean, the people we want to talk to, the specific people who can relate to some of the things that it's not just about the clothing, it's about the culture, the music, the food, the places, the shoes, the fashion, and all that type of stuff. But it has to be relatable to your audience, for your audience to connect with you emotionally or to connect with you in one way or another. And once they do, you have to then make sure you're consistent in putting yourself in front of them. Eventually, they will buy. They will either buy again from that emotional connection, like I said, or the FOMO. They just see a bunch of their friends having it, and they want to go ahead and do the same thing. So a few things I wanted to talk about is, like I said, your ideas and visions as an entrepreneur or as a business are just not enough. You have to build a bridge for people to cross it, and you have to be able to meet your customers where they are. So one of the brands that does that the best, probably in the United States and maybe around the world, is Nordstrom. Nordstrom has this thing where they say the customer is always right. And indeed, they are. they are probably right about that when they say the customer is always right in the sense. So Nordstrom is the kind of store, if you go and buy it, so let's say they sell this hat, I go and buy this hat, I wear it 5 times and I don't, for whatever reason, I just don't like it. Or my friend comes with another color, he says, yo, these, or every time we go out, he's wearing the red, I'm wearing the black, and people keep saying, yo, you look really good, but it's the same hat we're wearing. And I said, I'm going to take this hat back to Nordstrom because I just don't like it. I don't have to give Nordstrom any particular defect reason. I don't like the hat, I want to return it. Nordstrom would more than likely, almost 9.5 times out of 10, take that product back and let the customer choose. If they have the red, they would let them buy the red because they believe that is one way of building your brand. That is one way of building trust with your customer. That is one way of building an emotional connection with your customer. And that is one way of having them come back. So if that happens for you at Nordstrom versus Macy's, next time you want to make a purchasing decision and you want to buy something you want, where is the first place you're going to think of going? Nordstrom, because there is a highly likely possibility that they will take care of you better. It's not to say they will allow you to return stuff. So don't go into Nordstrom and start returning stuff. But they make sure they take care of their customers because they have the policy or the where they say within their company vision and all that stuff, mission statement, the customer is always right. The customer, you put the customer first. So think about that as you're building your brand. And like I said, only for people who build these ideas of building it and they will come, you have to look at the companies that exist that do these things. Luxury brands, and certain luxury brands do. I mean, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, they create another thing that they do is create scarcity. It doesn't have to be a luxury brand. You could be a very small brand and create scarcity around what you do. And when you create scarcity around what you do, you will be able to create the effect of build it and they will come. So an example of what we did when we released our first Freetown, well, not the first Freetown, when we released our Freetown Black on Black, we had released the green, white, and blue and all that stuff. And an example of that is something I could give to people about connection. When we created that particular brand or design, if you want to call it, which became a brand in itself, we were connecting to a specific group of people. If you were born in Freetown, if you were interested in the history of Freetown, if you had a connection to the place, you wanted to be a part of that movement. So first we created the emotional connection. I always say the base behind us creating Freetown came from the ideology of New York City, the NY hat or the LA hat, and the reasons why people buy these things. So same reason we created that emotional connection, and then people wanted to buy them. So for the remainder of the customers within the tribe who maybe had no interest in initially, there was the ideology or there was the concept of FOMO that was created. They saw all their friends wearing it and they had a fear of missing out. So they wanted to be a part of it. Now that had been done, and we continued to now make sure we found ways to stay in front of our customers. We had to do pop-up shops. I mean, we had to go to different parts. We did pop-up shops in LA. We went to the East Coast and did pop-up shops. We went to Sierra Leone and did pop-up shops. And we did those things. I mean, we had to play our own part to make sure we just weren't going to just make this and assume because we had created an emotional connection with people in the FOMO, we were just going to stop there. We had to keep building that bridge. We had to nurture it. We had to whatever. And so almost 10 years later, that brand is still the biggest thing we've ever created with Royal Dynamite. And when we did, like I was saying, when we did the Black on Black, we had to create scarcity. We were a very small brand then. We didn't have a lot of money and we knew we could sell a lot of this stuff. So we created this whole marketing campaign using people that had a connection to this part of the world or this particular city. And we put out the marketing and then we put out the product. We did pre-orders. We didn't have the product in hand. We were first going to get the money, but we had to build trust as a brand to be able to get people to pay us for something we hadn't made yet. We then took that initial investment, essentially the customers made into the brand. We printed their t-shirts, we printed the product, we gave them their products, and we were able to create this scarcity model where We didn't have money. We printed the product. We got the customer to buy the product. They paid for everything. There was a profit inserted into that and everything. And everybody was satisfied. The customer got something that they wanted. We were able to conduct business and we were able to do it professionally and earn their trust for them to keep coming back over and over again. So remember, it is important to get started with your businesses, but the real work really comes when you dive in and you start doing things. If you don't, I mean, like that concept of the scarcity model was something we tried. We didn't know if it was going to work. We were scared. But the beauty is I think within 3 weeks, we were able to sell a good amount. I mean, for a brand that was small, I mean, because we were only about 2.5 years in, within 3 weeks, we sold like $10,000 worth of product. And that was just the beginning because we continued making that product and it became the best selling product we ever made in the history of the brand. But we didn't just say, hey, we made something good. We're just going to just stop there. People are just going to keep coming. Again, the building and they will come. We had to keep going to the customer. We had to figure out where the customer is. I mean, in this case, a lot of the customers are in Sierra Leone. A lot of the customers are in the UK and London. And we had to figure out how to get to places or how to build that bridge and nurture these relationships to get to them and stay in front of them to make sure we were able to get them to make that marriage, for them to cross that bridge, because they saw it, but we had to build the bridge and they had to cross that bridge. So important, as I close, I want to leave you with these things. It's important that if you want to even emulate or take any piece of that build it and they will come strategy, you have to make sure you create an emotional connection. You have to create FOMO, the fear of missing out. You have to create a scarcity model. And at the same time, as you continue to build your brand, you have to stay consistent. You're going to learn from your failures. I mean, most people are afraid to fail. And I had a conversation with someone recently about us, specifically as Sierra Leoneans. And one of the things we weren't taught to learn how to fail forward. Even when we went to school, the ideology or the idea was you have to have good grades, and you were afraid to have bad grades. You were afraid to fail and learn from your mistakes. You were afraid to get the answer wrong, so therefore you would hide in these things. But if you don't make mistakes, you're not going to know how to rectify anything. You're not going to know how to get better. And therefore, because of that, some people just don't even try. They don't even try to get better. But we all can get better. I'm speaking out there to all my entrepreneurs, to all my business owners, and to anybody who has something that they want to pursue. Just start. And as you start, fail forward, learn from your mistakes, and make sure, in order to build a brand with staying power and to build a brand, you have to stay consistent. Find a way to make an emotional connection with the people that you're talking to, specifically your tribe, and build that bridge and help them cross it. So that's it for me today. Hopefully you guys learned something from the build it and they will come. Yes, there's only a few brands in the world, and I've named some of them, like the Apples and the Nikes, that have the brand power to build it and they will come in. Even though they understand that, they still spend a lot of money in marketing to make sure they stay in front of us. So don't forget these major principles. And the hope is that if you put in the work and the time, you will build a brand. Stay consistent. And like I always say, I really appreciate everybody who comes on my lives, everybody who takes the time to listen to these messages later on. I'm doing this so we can all learn from each other. Reach one, teach one. We all we got. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this one today. Let me know what you guys think of it. Send me a message, DM me, leave a comment on when the video is posted. Share it with your friends. I really appreciate it. And I will see you on the next one. And I'm going to start doing them every week. So I was doing them bi-weekly bi-weekly. And I'm just going to now start doing one every week. So I will see you guys next week, Tuesday, at the same time. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.